Hey there, and good morning and welcome. Let me just share my screen here. Hang on just one second. Oh, there we go. Welcome. Gosh, we have a good one for you today. In fact, it's kicking off a whole series that we're going to start today. Runs over the next 2 weeks, so hopefully you can tune in and really gain from that. Here is a list of the things that are coming up. Almost all of the sessions are going to be at 11 a.m. This Wednesday is going to be at noon. I have a little bit of a dental appointment I have to move around, but here we go. All the things to help you with your job search. Now, today we're going to focus on the job search organization itself, supercharging your job search. How do I put all the elements in place for what really is a real job search? But then you can see from our listing here, we're going to talk about resume. We're going to talk about LinkedIn. We're going to talk about using social media, really having an intervention before your next interview takes place so that you really understand it's a sales meeting. By the way, if you don't see the session that you like, or if you don't see the questions to your or answers to your questions getting answered, join in for the Ask SelfRecruiter session, which is really any questions you'd like to send in, just send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. We'll include all of those as well. Well, let's get started on today. Today is supercharging your job search. This is the part of job search nobody likes, because what they imagine job search is sitting on the internet, looking at job postings and click and send and click and send. And whew, my gosh, that is one activity that constitutes part of a job search, but that's only a singular activity. Supercharging your job search requires you to think about all the different aspects of your job search and really all the different avenues that you might go down, because this is a sales process. Selling yourself into a new job is a sales process, and you have to think of it that way. If you haven't seen me before, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career brand is really suffering mostly from how the story is told, as an individual, we're so emotionally close to the story, we can't really see how to tell it in a very, very different way. So if you need help with your resume or LinkedIn, just check out my SelfRecruiter page and check out my services tab, has everything there. My book, it's a good one. It'll help you roadmap for a little bit of everything in job search, not only the roadmap of job search itself, but how you overcome so many of those obstacles that you're going to face. Highly recommend it. Available on my site and over on Amazon as well. Couple more resources. My LinkedIn lecture, the full LinkedIn lecture that you can use as a start and stop tutorial, is right on my SelfRecruiter website, about halfway down the page. And you can see me large or the slides large, and really, as I said, start and stop tutorial as you improve your LinkedIn profile. Be sure to share that with friends as well. Over on my LinkedIn itself, you can click on the articles that I've shared and find a lot of things that will even support today's lecture, or understand how to avoid big mistakes that we make, or really even how to prevent your resume from becoming resume roadkill along the way. Now, there are a lot of ways to potentially find your new or next job, your next career, wherever you might like to move. Every single one of these things here is an activity that can lead us either to the place we're looking for, or really to an end result that's not going to deliver what we'd like. We're going to have to manage this entire process. I'm going to teach you how to do it today. Just that laundry list itself will leave us in this pretty unhappy list right here. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, if I only did. I don't know how to get myself from here to there. That's simply from a lack of control. Today's lecture is about how to apply control to your job search process. Now, as much as I'm going to give you a lot of different directives to think about this, think about that. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Don't let somebody else think for yourself. All of this information is about you being able to absorb in what potential options that you have. How can you solve your individual problem? And each person's individual problem is different than the rest. Now, when you feel a little bit overwhelmed, this is your guiding principle. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? Because as job seekers, or really anything that we do in life, we tend to want to do the easiest stuff first. Oh, what can I just pick up around me? The low-hanging fruit. What can I get to easily knock that out of the way? Versus, what's the most valuable activity I could do? Which activity could produce an interview first? I know that's more scary activity, but if that would produce an interview first, maybe we should do those things before we do other things. So let's go back to this guiding principle every time we feel we're a little bit off. Now, that laundry list I showed you earlier, we're going to distill that down into these few basic categories: searching for jobs, sending out resumes, networking, because we have to network no matter what, following up on opportunities, which I hope doesn't sound like, hey, I sent my resume in. We'll talk about what actual follow-up is. Strategizing for interviews, because every single interview is a chance to get even better. And of course, marketing yourself right to those decision makers. That's a scary part, but I believe that's the essence of actual real job search. Really reaching out to those decision makers where you know that you could make their life easier, their team's life easier, their results easier to achieve. Reach out to them, bend their ear ever so slightly, which could be over email, could be over the telephone, lots of different options. And key to all of this is making sure we review our goals every single day, and of course, at the end of every single week. Now, wherever you are in your process, and we're going to give you a lot of detail coming up, take your first step and learn how to repeat. This is about getting that rusty lawnmower that's been sitting all winter long type thing. It's about getting that thing to start back up so it's ready to cut some grass. Now, structuring and building our job search plan of action. The basics of how I recommend job search for most individuals is to upend and reverse the entire process rather than simply sitting on the internet looking for job postings. And I'll tell you what the problem is with that as we go along. Why don't we reverse it? Why don't we start with the companies or organizations you're dying to work for? I'm dying to work there. By the way, you being dying to work there can't be because you saw some open job. This is about a dating process. And so your desire to work there has to be genuine, and it can't be about you, because that's about you. If it's about you in a dating process, it doesn't work very well. So start with companies, and the number, it'll be scary. The number is actually 30. I'll show you how to get there a little bit easier. The number is 30, but if I can come up with 30 companies that are really statistically perfect to hire you, only unknown really is, do they have a job opening? Okay. Well, if I start with that perfect statistical list, and by the way, that's what a very good recruiter does. If you are A++ candidate looking for a new job, you're like the shiny, sparkly, you are the top of the heap. First thing a good recruiter does is put together a list of 30 companies that are statistically perfect to hire this person. Then they don't bother to look at those companies' career sites. They don't bother to look at the job boards. They simply pick up the phone, call 30 managers at 30 companies, and magically every single time, 2, 3, or 4 out of the 30 go, we need a person just like this. Oh, you do? Tell me about your need. Tell me what's going on. What we didn't say was we didn't tell them about the magic trick, the homework, the way we positioned ourselves to get struck by lightning. Just be in the right place, right time. Now, if I start with this list of 30 organizations, the very next step is to warm up that audience. This is an audience you're going to try to sell yourself to. Therefore, you need to warm up your audience. That means using LinkedIn. So build out your great LinkedIn profile. Check the LinkedIn lecture if you haven't done that yet. We're going to go into LinkedIn and really reverse search LinkedIn. I'll show you how to do that today. No need to stress over it. And while I'm rebuilding the organizational chart in my brain as I'm looking at titles, I'm going to imagine where I'd like to work, either see it or imagine it. And I'm going to circle out around from that, selecting 25 to 30 individuals that essentially I would interact with probably every day in that role. This is beginning to warm up the audience. I open those profiles. It triggers a marketing event of having looked at them. I'll show you more on that coming up. Second marketing event, really a second hook and a second worm on the hook being tossed out into the lake to wiggle around, is asking them to connect. I've already opened the profile, which triggered having looked at them behind the firewall of the company. Here I am. Oh, we need a person just like that. You do? Now I'm going to ask them to connect with a message that says, you don't know me, professionally appropriate, and here's a little stroke to your ego. As simple as, I like to connect with other professionals in our niche. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Now we've already opened, we've asked to connect. Now we move on to step 3, which is simply looking at your 25 to 30 people that you've already opened, you've already asked to connect. Certainly did not wait for the answer, because it's sales process. We don't have to wait for the answer. 3, 4, 5 people. Now I send them each an individual email as if they're the only person in the world. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill. absolutely by first name. We'll go over the script coming up. I reach out to them. I introduce myself to them. I tell them why I could be so valuable. I tell them why I'm excited about the company. And I go for the jugular to book a meeting, book an interview, book a meeting, sell, repeat. You need to do this as often as possible. In a normal world, and we're certainly not in a normal world, it takes 6, 7, or even 8 interviews with new companies before one of those makes you an offer. So also, this is somewhat of a numbers game. You have to ramp up your activity. That's the repeat, 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 repeat. So job search is this sales process. We get that part. I'd love to just go after the job and get the job if it was just only that easy. It doesn't quite really work that easily. Everybody else is sitting and hitting that darn button the same way you are. I wish it said apply most of the time. Most of the time it says submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive. It's like our Friday night, waiting for that phone to ring. Oh, it's going to ring. It's going to ring. It'll be a telemarketer when it does, and then we're going to be back in an unhappy place. So becoming a self-recruiter, which covers all of my lecture series, at the core is about taking back control for yourself. This is about you overseeing one great candidate, that's you, as a recruiter. You're the recruiter, you're the candidate. So you have to be the person that strategizes for the job search, strategizes about the message, about what you bring to the table, plans all of the outreach, and even picks yourself up by the bootstraps when things don't go so well. Most of it involves really heavily using LinkedIn and understanding the benefits to that, but also requires keeping one eye on that toughest competitor available. And if you take your eyes off those folks, you're gonna miss them. So, or they may beat you. Think about the toughest projects you've worked on as a job holder. You're holding the job. You're in your normal work life. Excuse me while I grab a little tissue here. We're running a little hot today, so I don't have air on today. So yeah, need a little wipe down. Think of those important projects. How much problem solving, how much stress, energy went into those projects? Well, your job search is the most important project that you have right now. The same level of problem solving, energy, focus has to go into solving this. And you have to combine that with the understanding that it's a sales process. So if we start a job search plan, we're going to have a much, much better outcome. If you just execute the plan, better results. So pretty simple, as I outlined earlier, we're going to select the organizations or companies. Now, I told you I'd help you an easier way to get to 30. 30 is a lot of companies that I'm dying to work for. I get it. Can you come up with 10 companies? I bet you can come up with 10 companies. I'm dying to work for. Oh yeah, I can come up with 10 companies. Okay. Maybe take those 10 companies into a basic financial tool, Yahoo Finance, Hoovers.com, any one of them that are out there. You put their names in one of the financial tools and you instantly get a better synopsis of the organization than probably their own website. And usually a little on the left, a little on the right is their top 3 competitors. Very quickly, your list of 10 can become 40. You can cross out a few duplicates, cross out a few you don't like. Pretty soon you're at a list of 30, and probably all the same reasons you might like those 10 very likely applied to most of the others. Now, what I'm really saying is not possible. That's not possible, but if it were, how do I align the sun, the moon, the stars working backward? Devise the steps needed. Allow yourself to think like a little bit of a detective, a little bit of Sherlock Holmes. Work backward, very easy to get to the steps. Discover the decision makers. Well, we'll teach you exactly how to do that reverse searching on LinkedIn today. There's no mystery there. Overcome the objections. I'm sorry, what was their title? Decision makers. Their job is to object to you. So when they object to you, you should be fantastic, because it's my opportunity to position and sell to them, to overcome those objections, which is my job. Get the meeting, dazzle them, and either have them give you or create that job for you. So 30 companies or organizations statistically perfect to hire you. I mean, going after the right ones changes everything. Not just going after ones you see an open job at. Those aren't necessarily the right ones, but go after the right ones and everything's very, very different. Now, I'm sure by now in your work lives, you've probably seen a sales funnel. It's not too mysterious. So grab the sales funnel off the internet to show you. Basic sales funnel here in job search, it's about creating awareness and interest and maybe consideration and really eventually moving toward offer. I hope you get that the top of the funnel has to have a lot of activity in it. Ideally, if you would like to have choice in your job search, choice in your career, you need to be working on 10 open jobs at the same time. That's the only time that you can juggle enough activity that you may be able to get to multiple offers. Your goal with all this activity, which is a tough one, it is not a gimme, this is a very tough goal, is to generate one brand new interview per week. But I can tell you it's absolutely doable, but not without the groundwork effort. You have to put the effort in. So connect with people, understand who your target audience is. That next step, once you have the companies, is to begin to warm up that audience, to think about who could benefit, who interacts with my role. And I'm going to select people up, down, left, and right of that food chain. I'm going to open. I'm going to ask them to connect. I'm going to convey that basic message that says, you don't know me, I'm professionally appropriate. Here's a little stroke to the ego. Out of 25 to 30 connect requests that you send out, you'll probably get 10, 12 acceptances pretty quickly. Oh, I know you'd like them all. It's not really about that. Well, a little bit, but it's not really about that. Whether they connect with you or not, these are people that will now have looked at you and you've begun to warm up your audience. Some of them will connect. And after those few people connect, do the search again. You can probably see 10 times deeper now into the company. Another advantage of connecting with some people. That message is oh so clear. Here it is. You write it one time ever, copy and paste it forevermore. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending on how we like to say that. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Mission really accomplished there. Now, there's no waiting because the answer is really irrelevant. In a sales process, you don't wait for the answer. You just keep moving toward the goal. I've already opened. I've already asked to connect. Now I select the 3, 4, 5 individuals that I think are likely to be involved in the conversation for a person like myself. By the way, that's as close as you need to be because you'll be pretty darn close with your gut feeling. Any one of those folks, if they're not the decision maker, they'll certainly know the decision maker. And now all of that information that you're collecting is an asset that you need to keep. So over on my SelfRecruiter website, under the advice tab, which is my blog, there's a listing called the Job Search Management System. It's free. You can download these forms and then you can begin to actually manage and capture this information. Who are these individuals at this company? Who have I reached out to? What was the message? What's my next step? All of this will help you because it's a continual sales process to get the right job. So to recap, I think you know this part. We're going to select the organizations or companies. We're going to select the 25 to 30 individuals to begin to warm up the audience. I'm going to open those profiles, ask them to connect, not wait for the answer, then directly reach out to the decision makers directly. Script on that is still coming up. And my goal is to book a meeting. By the way, I don't have to say the words interview. And certainly what you're going to hear in my outreach message coming up, I never actually mention I'm looking for a job. Let's be clear. It's crystal clear. I'm looking for a job. Everyone knows I'm looking for a job. I don't have to say it. Saying I'm looking for a job or saying I'd like to interview gets you kicked to HR. Avoid the wrong verbiage. You'll be in a much, much better place. Small changes change perception on everything. And I think it's headed toward 85 to 90 today. So sorry that we do another little svelting there to get rid of all that. Now, another concern we may have is maybe we haven't worked remotely or maybe not effectively remotely. So you want to begin to think about, you may have to go back to your resume, to your LinkedIn profile, and you may have to tell that story in a slightly different way. You may have other experience that illustrates that you can, give value at a distance, including even being a presenter or speaker or doing conference calls or webinars. All of that kind of background is an example of being able to work remotely and to deliver value. Now let's get to the decision maker. Who is it that makes these decisions? Well, I don't just mean the decider, because rarely does the decider do it all by themselves. This is about influence. Who around the decider will help that decider get to the yes or really ultimately get to the no about me? Now, depending on your field, we all may have different targets. So we have to go back to the core things that we should think about. And that is the boss, the boss's boss, and maybe even the boss's boss's boss. By the way, as you might guess from what I'm laying out here, if I'm doing it, I'd like to start with the boss's boss's boss. It's a basic top-down selling technique. I know the boss's boss or boss's boss's boss can seem so scary, so far up the food chain. Yes, maybe, but those folks are not afraid of you. They think of you as a potential strategic asset. Now, don't take this word the wrong way, but they're trying to play a chess game with their master of the universe, whatever they're doing further up the food chain. They need players on the board. They need pawns on the board in those roles. And so if I can get to the boss's boss or boss's boss's boss, and I can persuade them about my value, boom, you get introduced down the food chain very, very quickly. And when you get introduced down the food chain, you always get that interview. But I'll show you how to get to any of these folks. Now, depending on your field, not brain surgery, it all kind of breaks down the same way. So it's really a series of titles, or if there's slight variations of titles for your area. And I begin to rebuild that organizational chart, hopefully capturing as much of this equity that I'm building in research. Remember, you may be changing jobs right this moment, but you're not going to have just one more job. You're going to have one more job, and after that, one more job, and after that, one more job. That's the world we live in today. So the sooner that you begin to capture this information, the equity that you're building, that's information you'll be able to use again, even if these individuals move on to other places or other companies. You may even be able to use it more so once they move on. Other ways to uncover decision makers, just besides reverse searching LinkedIn, there could be, of course, name mentions. So I'm going to look at books and articles and the press releases and all the things going on for your industry, if there's certain trade magazines, that kind of thing. So name mentions, by the way, that's a basic sales technique. Flatter someone's ego. Oh, I saw your article in such and such. Yes, they all know what you're doing, and yet they can't resist it either. It works. Referrals. Now, anybody that you speak to can give you a referral to another industry manager, either inside this company or outside this company. Jack, who's the best one of these you've ever worked with? Jim Jones over at so-and-so. Right, regurgitate it right away, simply because I learned how to ask in a way that didn't generate a yes or no. Can you tell me who? Oh, I shouldn't tell. I shouldn't share names. Be careful how you phrase it. Really important. But referrals, very easy to get referrals, establish a little credibility, then ask their opinion in a way that strokes their ego. Of course, most of what we're going to do is what I'm already going to show you, and that's using LinkedIn and reverse searching of LinkedIn to reconstruct the organizational chart for the company, or at least how we see it. So I want you to think about all these different methods, but let me take you through the LinkedIn method. So basically, top of any page on LinkedIn is a unified search bar, same on every page. So I'm going to go in and search this thing. In this example, I'm searching Informatica. It's a big database middleware company. You'll notice it gives me a giant drop-down menu right away as I start to type it. Don't click on the drop-down menu. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Don't do it. Simply type what you'd like, hit enter, and what you get is this nice magical secondary sorting process here. What I'm really after are the people, but as long as I'm here, are there other companies I haven't thought of for some reason? This is another way to come up with statistically perfect companies. If I find one company that's perfect, or maybe even a company I've worked for in the past, stick every one of those names here and see this laundry list of other companies, you may scratch your head going, why are they here? I bet you they'd love to hire your background. That's one of the reasons they're here. So you do this search and go, well, as long as I'm here, show me the companies. Oh, they hit it over there. There it is. Show me the companies. 34,000 companies. What's going on here? Well, after you get past the Informatica, what are all the rest? Well, I can tell you, this used to be my field. They're all system integrators. They all either resell or install Informatica software. If I am right to work for Informatica, I'm very likely statistically right to work for a great number of these other organizations. This is an alternate method to develop that perfect list. But of course, once I find companies and expand that way, I really have to go over to people. So no, show me the people. What do we get? 2.5 million. Ooh, I'll be cold in the ground before I can get through that list. And by the way, I should mention, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. So I know I can't do too many searches. They're going to cut me off pretty quickly, slap my hand. So I have to put on my thinking cap, even on the free version. You know what? I need the people that are in the US. I don't need the people that are all over the world. So give me the ones that are currently in the US. And by the way, as long as I'm thinking of it, I need the people currently working for Informatica, not working there 3 years ago. What do I get? 1,615 results. Oh, it's much better, but I can't look at 1,600 people either. More thinking. Okay, oh, I get it. Maybe it's a VP. I think a VP is going to hire me. Look at that, just simple VP, really US, really currently working for Informatica. It's still all on the free version, by the way. And what do I get? Oh, 75 VPs, 75 VPs. That's a lot of chiefs in that company. I have it. It's a director. I think it's a director, really US, really Informatica. What do I get? Oh, 228 directors. I'm headed the wrong way. No, I have it because it's brainstorming, it's problem solving. It's a sales director I was really looking for. This entire process of search is about problem solving, working backward. And as long as I'm having an epiphany moment, I don't need them everywhere in the US. I need them in the greater New York City area, even on the free version. Currently working for Informatica. What do I get? 3. Do you remember? I'm looking for 3 to 5. Now, I hit the bare minimum. I don't think you really think that I'm ever happy with the bare minimum. So I've hit the bare minimum, but really, that's only 3 people. If I reach out to 5 people, my odds increase. So maybe there's a sales VP, not just a sales director, but maybe there's a sales VP, really greater New York City and Informatica currently, and 2 more sales people. Oh, I love it. Now I'm up to 5. That's about the right level. And I do think that each of these probably are statistically going to be involved in a conversation to hire a person like me. I've made the right choice. Now, let's show you something else here. That we have this connect, which I really love. And we have this, send InMail, which I no love, send InMail. InMail, to be clear, is the literal definition of spam. It is paid email. Please do not send InMail, in my view. You may not feel it is spam, but if you're a high volume target, like any of the decision makers you're after, or someone like me, my inbox is full of well over 1,000 unopened nonsense, endless spam messages trying to sell me something, which come in through InMail. So to me, why don't you just connect with the person directly? That's the basic model. So even if I load Nick's profile, they're going to frustrate me with the send InMail. But if I was just clever enough to hit the ... they've just hidden the connect button behind the fence. Oh, I'll just put it over here. They're never going to see the connect button over here. There's that message you write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. Goal of all of this is to then acquire this knowledge that you're beginning to accumulate. Keep it for yourself and grow your own database. Use those forms. It'll help you over on the SelfRecruiter website. So just like I mentioned before, it's a dating process. It has to be about them. Have you ever gone on a date with someone like Mr. Me? Me. Is there a second date going to happen with Mr. Me? I don't really think so. Not unless we're going to the Four Seasons and I'm really dying to go or something. No, because that person forgot the basics. It has to be about them, even though you're here to talk about yourself. Oh, me, my job, my career. But it has to be in the framework of them. What excites you about them? How can you add value to them? It's a slight shift. Take your first step. Your first step is usually the outreach message. Hi, this is John. I'd like you to hire me. I'm sorry, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Security. Doesn't end very well because this person forgot it was a date. It's not about this person. Who cares what you want? Why are you interrupting my day? Versus, did you arrive interrupting my day with some value that would make me jump out of my chair? So back to this whole sales process, it's worse than just the sales process because it's a sales process mixed with a dating process. And it's our job to be very, very persuasive. Let's go into the script itself. This is for those 3, 4, or 5 individuals. Once I've already picked the 25 to 30, I've already opened, I've already asked to connect. I didn't wait for an answer. Now I've picked 3, 4, 5 individuals, and each one of them I reach out to by first name. I don't care who they are, Jack, Jim, or Jill, by first name. 30 seconds to live or die. And dying sounds like, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. We're going to make this a little larger so you can see it here as we work through it. Now, I'm just going to take you through the structure here. And this part of the conversation will remind you of what to build as you're doing it on your own. When you go to do it on your own, that text on the left side of the document will remind you of everything I'm teaching you. So let's go over the structure. This is exactly what I would also teach brand new recruiters. A little bit more on my background, 3 different disciplines on a desk as a traditional headhunter recruiter, 7 or 8 years totally in outside recruitment, 3.5 of those years as the national trainer for a 100 office recruiting system. So every potential new recruiter that would come in and say, I want to be a great recruiter, they'd come into my 90-day program to teach them how hiring really works. Not how people think it works, but how does it actually work? So I would teach them this, and I'd say we have to greet them, and we're simply going to go, hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? And right away, I'd get an arm going, isn't that what they all say? Yes. This is an example of using the customary and expected. Really, they're trained just like Pavlov trained those dogs, bring out the food and they salivate, bring out the food and ring the little bell and they salivate. Eventually, I just come out and ring the little bell. They still salivate because they're a trained dog. So I'm going to use this professional greeting because it is usual, customary, and expected. And they're going to give me one of 3 answers. The one I would like, which is, I'm fine, John. How can I help you? Or maybe they'll give me the trained dog, which sounds like, I'm fine, John. How can I help you? I'll take it. I'm moving forward. Or they're going to give you something you don't like I'm terrible. Well, I can imagine that you might know how the good ones go. So let's back up and take it from the top as if it were terrible. And you can hear this whole structure together. By the way, just to outline the rest, we're going to acknowledge their response, good, bad, or ugly. Cannot pretend we didn't hear it. We're going to get right to the point and tell them why we're calling, which has to be all about them. Now, if we went to one of those schools, there's only about this many. If we went to one of those schools, oh my gosh, do we mention it? I've seen the doors fly right off the hinges for my clients from those schools. So we do mention it. If we didn't go to one of those schools, oh, I know your school was a really good one. Just forget it by the wayside right now. That's not part. Get to 2 or 3 key things about you that would make them jump out of their chair and then go for the close. The close is simply, well, most people misunderstand it. They think it's asking for what you'd like. No, that is specifically not closing. That's part of closing, but it's not closing. You have to ask for what you'd like, which is only half. Then you have to ask for agreement to it. That's where they say no. And that's why everyone's afraid to actually close. So here's how this whole thing sounds. Hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? I'm terrible. Well, Jack, let's see if we can change that. The reason for my call, of course, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. But, I have to tell you, I've worked at XYZ company in the past where I have handled very, very similar challenges. Pause for a moment. All I have to have is a little carrot to get a meeting, and a meeting is an interview. I have to come up with something that I can offer them that would be valuable. Jack, I would love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues I bet your team's experiencing. Brave enough now to go for the jugular. I have an opening on my calendar. Opening on my calendar. Words are very, very important. Tuesday at 10 a.m. One day, one time, never more. Simply a device to get them to react to, good, bad, or ugly. And then hand off control to them and make them feel in control as if there's any control on their part. It's as simple as, might that work for a brief meeting? Also, my last words solve the only problem, which is don't waste my time. Oh, brief meeting, I can handle it. Might makes them feel in control. Takes a lot of practice, but you need to write it out in advance. You need to practice it in advance. You need to remove the subservience and absolutely speak to everyone as an equal. Never speak up to anyone, and certainly, of course, never speak down to anyone. Basics of the script will get a little better over time as you work on it and you go and find out, well, I'm not sure why I'm excited about this company. Well, I'm going to have to go do my research. I'm going to have to find out why they're in the news, maybe look at their press releases, find something I can ring that bell in conversation about. Now, by the way, I'm talking about here in these slides here, and I can become a little larger now that these is large type. Let's get to the right size. Oh, there we go. So I'm talking about what can I get from this call, but if you're not ready to call, you can still accomplish most of this by email. I recommend you basically do a quick email, and the same language, almost no difference, just a little tiny variation, but it's almost the same thing, whether I put it in email or I put it out verbally over the phone or even into voicemail. But why would I want to go into voicemail? Because they cannot hear your passion in an email, but they can hear your passion in a voicemail. By the way, if you're going to do this two-handed approach of I'm going to call and I'm going to email, then what you do is you construct the email. I have it ready to send, but I don't send it. I could send it, but I don't. Now I pick up the phone and dial. In almost every case, it's going to go to voicemail. So if it goes to voicemail like normal, the secret is don't speak to the machine. Why do we do that? It goes beep up. Oh, hi Jack, it's John Crant. Like, why is my voice up there in the clouds now? Simply because it went beep at me. When it goes beep, you go, drop your register. Go the other way as if you're confiding in a deep, dear friend. Oh, hi, good morning, Jack. it's John Crant. I just had to reach out, introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on over there at ABC Company. By the way, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. I had to reach out because, I'd love to share with you how, we tackled all those issues I bet your launch team is experiencing. My background includes handling almost the same type of launch over at XYZ company. I don't know if this might work for your schedule, but I have an opening Tuesday at 10 a.m. Certainly looking forward to a great discussion. Here's my cell. Boom. Now, after I leave that message, now they cannot hear that passion. That's virtually the same message I wrote. They can't hear that passion in an email, but they can hear that in a voicemail. Leave it in the voicemail, let it go. And my gosh, when your voicemail is listened to, the ones next to it, yours will speak to them simply because you've learned how to properly talk to the machine. Now, if I didn't stick my foot in my mouth, then I click send. If you are making enough calls, if you are doing enough outreach, you'll make a mistake. You'll make an error. And then suddenly you'll have to backtrack somehow. So if I stuck my foot in my mouth because I thought that thing could re-record and I went off script at the end and I think, oh my gosh, devastation. I can't recall that voicemail. What do I do now? Oh, I just walk away in shame? No. Click in front of the email and say, sorry about that email or voicemail, comma. I obviously thought I could re-record. Didn't want you to lose sight of the fact that I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. And I just start that way. What I found is that people will give you a tremendous amount of latitude if you'll just fall on that sword. So let's fall on that sword and go after them. You have tremendous value to offer them. Now, if you do get them in a discussion, the whole point is, yes, you'd like to get or not get what you're after, which is really this interview, but you're always going to get or not get that. How about after that? So what else could I get from this call once I try to achieve my main goal and I get it or I don't get it? What else could I say? What could I leave them thinking? What are they thinking of me? What are they thinking of my skills? What else could I do? There must be something else. There's always something else in conversation you can do because you're not simply a robot. You need to figure out how to engage them and work with them. Now, another technique that I really like, and I thought it was complete hogwash the first time that I was taught it. I was taught as a recruiter that if I don't get what I want, I have to go after something else. And maybe I can develop a relationship with them and get an agreement to call them back. I'm thinking, what? That doesn't even make sense to me. It's like, why would they want to do this? I'm like, I'm going to get an agreement to call them back when I really didn't have anything to offer them. So to me, it sounded like, can I call you back and bother you? Well, if you say it like that, it's not going to go very far. But you have to think about, well, if it were possible, what kind of strange things would have to happen in conversation for it to make sense? I might go, Jack, from time to time, I'll run into something, some interesting situation when speaking with others in the industry. These managers live in a bubble of isolation. You may think they know what's going on, but they're so busy putting out fires. They need someone that can help them keep the pulse going as to what's going on in the industry. So by just beginning this way, and then I shift over to why it could benefit both of us. It would be helpful to run a scenario by you. Scenario, I love scenarios to think about. Would it be okay if I gave you a call for your opinion or your advice if something were to come up in discussions? Now, at first, as I said, I thought this was hogwash. I'm like, oh, come on, this can't possibly work. And then I forced myself to start doing it because it was part of my training. And I realized I was wrong. It actually does work. And people do want that if you're this reasonable, rational person, they want that access to industry information, what's going on. And I'm already, putting out there that it's going to be interesting if I reach out to them. Now, in reality, do I expect to really ever call this person back with this kind of scenario? Statistically, I do not. But on rare occasion, you will. By simply going through this process, you'll realize you get a tighter bond with this person that you've spoken to for the very first time, and they'll remember you much more in the future, whether you actually ever call them back for this type of thing or not. It's a very, very good way to deepen your relationship. Now, the point of developing these individual contacts is to be able to use them when it's valuable to you. But your job is not to burn these people out. These are your cherished assets. So you have to manage and balance all of your communications. Your communications all have to deliver something because it's a date. Or I saw this article and thought about your challenge, or I saw this and thought about you. Not simply me, because you're building trust, you're building rapport. And each one of these times you're outreaching, you're building your asset up in their mind. You get to the end of the discussion, and another way to think about it is getting the referrals out of them or getting advice out of them. And that involves a little bit of stroke of the ego and then really putting them in your shoes, looking out of your eyes. Jack, I know with your background and, of course, position within the industry, well, you must hear things. Who do you know that's hiring right now? Or Jack, what am I missing? If you had my background, where would you be looking for an opportunity? I'd look at ABC company. Oh my gosh, why didn't they mention that earlier? It's not their job to mention any certain company. It's our job to cause those connections to happen in their brain and to make them want to share it with us. But that comes from building the right trust and rapport, understanding why we're valuable, and to reach out there as if we do not have a cup in our hand jiggling a coin, because that's not really going to help us. All of these things I'm describing are gentle, figurative little nudges to move the whole process forward. To recap basic job search steps, in my view, it's to start with this list of 30 companies that are statistically perfect to hire you, ones that are just the right ones. By the way, if you would like to see an alternate method to build this, which is really interesting, be sure to watch the LinkedIn lecture, which shows you a whole nother way to build a statistically perfect list of companies. Select those 25 to 30 individuals. We're going to warm up the audience to before our approach, essentially. Open those profiles, ask them to connect, understand that they may or may not connect from you, and that does not have anything really to do with the influence level you're exerting, because if they look, you've influenced them. Don't wait for the answers to connect, because that part's irrelevant. It's a sales process. Simply use that as the avenue to identify the 3, 4, 5 individuals and then reach out to each of those as if they're the only person in the world. Now, when I'm speaking to an in-person audience, I know this is over internet today, but when I'm speaking to an in-person audience, the first question is, but do you mean to offer all 3 to 5 people the same Tuesday at 10 a.m.? Yes, I do. Well, first off, the odds of someone selecting Tuesday at 10 a.m. because they're available are very, very close to 0. So the chances of 2 people accepting Tuesday at 10 a.m. is as close to 0 as you can get. If that ever does happen to you, well, you've just been struck by the best lightning ever. By the way, when I get the first acceptance, I'm over the moon. Oh, fantastic. And then 10 minutes later, in comes second acceptance for Tuesday at 10 a.m. I go, oh no, now what? What? Now you're in the catbird seat. I don't email them back and say, oh, that's not going to work, because it's the wrong message. I email them back and say, Jack, Jim, Jill, so excited for our discussion. I can't wait. I'm really confident in the value I'll bring. By the way, and my Tuesday at 10 a.m. just filled, but my 3 p.m. is open. Might that work? Or you can let me know the best time. Now that they've shown interest to booking a time with me, I can now offer them a tiny little bit of wiggle room and still close the deal to make sure that that interview gets booked. Now, what are they thinking when Tuesday at 10 a.m. filled in? Oh my gosh, it's going to talk to a competitor, Very likely so, very likely so. You should book me now for the 3 o'clock before it's gone. So think about what this whole process does. And part of it is building excitement about your story, excitement about the value you bring. But your goal, like a rusty lawnmower after the winter, is to get that thing going and to get this engine running, because it takes the, 5, 6, 7, even 8 interviews for the average person to get that job offer. A really amazing person at the top of their game might get the job offer in 3 to 4 interviews. Those are different company interviews, by the way. We expect multiple interviews at every company, of course. So the sooner you're able to kind of get this whole thing moving, the better you'll be. Now, without tracking it, without controlling it, you're not going to do very well. Mentioned the system to kind of track everything. It's over on my website, the SelfRecruiter website. You just click the services. I'm sorry, not services tab. Click the advice tab. Click the services tab if you need help, but advice tab for the blog, and just click the job search management system. Each one of these things that I'm going to show you can download. Let me just show you the goal forms. Not going to take you through all the forms, but take you through the goal form. Already have taken you through the script form. That's part of this as well. Now, our activity goals, this part of it, let's zoom in here. We're going to set our goals, and then each week, at the end of the week, you have to, did I reach it? Did I not reach it? And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. So what am I tracking? Number of companies I'm going to contact this week. The caveat here, these are brand new companies I've never contacted before. Yes, I have lots of other ones I want to follow up on. Absolutely, and you should. But these are brand new companies you've never contacted before. You have to have continual new blood into your job search activity, or your roller coaster of activity is going to flatten out and you're not going to like what happens there. Number of emails outbound to managers or HR. Inbound emails don't really count. It's sowing the seeds that count. Number of calls. Now, if you're not ready to call, that may be a goose egg, but whatever it is, put it in there. Number of calls to managers you see in bold, and of course to HR not in bold. Now, let's clarify. If you'd like to work for HR, well, they are your managers as well. But HR, to be clear, only hires HR individuals. For the rest, they simply facilitate the process. So calls out to managers, to HR folks, we don't really count those if you're not looking for an HR job. Calls out to managers in your area, those are the ones we count. Out of all that activity every single week, here's the number you could kid yourself about most, the number of meaningful conversations. What makes it meaningful? You may not have gotten what you want. Maybe there was no opening. Maybe they have no interest in your background, but you pulled out a name for referral. You got a new idea of where to approach a different company. All of that could be meaningful if you got to an epiphany moment in discussion. About 6 per week might be the right one. Number of companies, about 3 new ones per week. That's not very sustainable over time. About 3 per week is all that you can really handle. The rest, track your numbers and things begin to change. At the top of that form, you sit down every Friday afternoon and go, you know what? It's time for some reality here. Now, in my book, to be successful, I talk about you only have to be honest with one person, and that's yourself. So this is not the time to fudge the numbers. If you got a goose egg, put a goose egg there. If you track this over the course of 8 weeks, you're going to become motivated to get 1 or 2 or 3, and then suddenly you'll begin to feel the change. All the forms are free to download. There's job opportunities, there's networking strategy, resumes I send out, interview strategy, calling strategy, because every single activity you do has to be improved over time. It's a learning potential. Wherever you are, take your first step and learn to repeat. Now, tomorrow at 11 a.m., we're going to talk all about resume and really how to make your resume dazzle. So I hope you can join us for that. That'll be an 11 a.m. session. And then Wednesday's session is at 12 noon. That is all on LinkedIn. Of course, the LinkedIn lectures also over my SelfRecruiter website. And all the rest of these dates are right there. You can check them out on your own. Now, coming up the end of next week, and the date is up on my SelfRecruiter website, there's the Ask SelfRecruiter session. So if you're not getting your job search questions answered, send them in. Send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. Best questions are always included. And if you need help elevating your career brand across your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your messaging, and maybe even help with your outreach process itself, all my services are on the SelfRecruiter website under the Services tab. And if you need a little bit of chat before knowing which one is right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. Thank you guys for tuning in today. And let's get that engine going, and let's repeat. Take care and have a great day. Take care.